Welcome back to everyone from your coffee break. And we now have two further presentations between now and the lunch break. The first is from Volodymyr Karikash, and he is director of the Ukrainian Institute of Positive Psychology. We are extremely pleased and happy that he is able to speak to us today, and his colleagues say that he is positive psychology in Ukraine. So he's a really important person for us to hear from as part of our symposium today. He was concerned that there might be electricity power cuts in his area of Ukraine, and so he has pre-recorded his presentation to us. So Martinas is going to play that for us now, and if there are a few minutes at the end, he may be able to add a few additional words. I think we have Volodymyr with us, don't we? Yes, Volodymyr. Is it possible perhaps for you to speak to us directly, and then in the same way as with the other presentations, the translator can translate? Would that be okay with you, Volodymyr?
Yes, of course. If we find some technical difficulty, I will try, but I will try to keep time. Yes.
It's okay. We understand. Thank you very much for doing that.
So I will try to share the screen. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, I will try. So of course it's I will speak Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Ну, у нас це якраз приклад стресу.
We have the example of stress that we are currently living in.
Я взяв в якості слова, таке попереднього,
introductory word. Yes.
Слова Платона.
I have chosen words of Plato. Difficult times give birth to strong people.
А сильні люди створюють добрі часи.
Strong people create good times. On the one hand, the very topic of evil, of war with good and evil that is happening in Ukraine activates lots of negative permanent feelings, anxiety, fear, ugliness, and hatred. It has already been mentioned by previous participants. On the other hand, our symposium encourages us to feelings of interest to individuality and its participants and their ideas. By the way, the very word symposium is translated from Greek as fist. That's why we have to feel here as we are at the fist of some kind. But on the other hand, we have to deal with war. The science has strict definitions. So the sort of psychotherapeutic practice also has stories and metaphors. In the war that is going on, we as psychotherapists are overwhelmed with this constant flow of emotionally charged stories, expressions, and our own experiences. Sometimes brain cannot work with them in a proper way and differentiate between them, to arrange them according to their importance, usefulness, and truthfulness. Roman Kacher says that sometimes it's difficult to differentiate between natural sufferings and the natural one. And we have the way to secondary traumatization. It is this phenomenon of living through activity about which mosaic information and absent logical chains are being added by limbic system in the form of fantasies, illusion creations accepted by the conscious by as real ones. If we do this internally, it is much more scary than real event, because the event can end and delusion can last as much as possible and has new and new details. I would like to have here I'd like to emphasize on that, because we have lots of this secondary traumatization now. We are not sometimes real participants of the event, but we just find out about this event. Right now, It has been the missile attack on Kyiv right now when we are having symposium. We are not in Kyiv right now, but still this information brings lots of feelings to us. And of course, I want to tell about my own experience of my colleagues who in this extraordinary event managed to survive, develop, live through live through them every day, and also take part in the symposium. And also, I would like to tell my European colleagues about terrible victims of civilians in this war, or that 5% of wounded militaries are groin wounds, and that's why it's extremely popular now to have this freezing of reproductive material of men to actually maintain development of families in the future. But the format of our symposium requires some distancing from feelings and certain stories from me, and I need just to have this position of interested observer researcher, and then I need to find the optimal level of generalization and share it with you, my colleagues. Similar dissociation, psychological dissociation, can happen also with the meeting of the client, and that we both deal with the same events. According to Alexander Fields, we in our work have to be one step ahead of our client. I suggest this hypothesis, and it will be the main idea of my speech, that it is possible only uh, when we have real existential maturing, growing of the very psychotherapists. And then we have the question, how do we existentially how can we be different from our clients? Alexander Mironenko has mentioned about wounded healer, but we are wounded, but we still have to be different from our clients somehow. What are our senses? What are our what are understanding about ourselves and about what will be helpful for us? And here I would ask you to address three main ideas of this speech. The first one is that the widening of our own identity, and here it's already partly, it has already been partly voiced. The second, it's when you can use three existential possibilities. Also, we have already we're talking about this survival, living, and development, but I would like to draw your attention that it is to draw your attention that it's not just some kind of act, but also three existential possibilities that exist in any system of life. And the third one is the idea of five existential ages of person, five, let's say, heights of fate. That will be main idea. I remember Vienna 2022 EAP Congress and Pezeshkian lecture on psychosomatics and positive psychotherapy. At that time, I have been dealing with this positive psychotherapy for 10 years, and Pezeshkian, the founder of this positive psychotherapy, presented me a book about psychosomatics, and it was very interesting for me there in Vienna how would he start his lecture about psychosomatics. And he started from this picture, and he told that when a client comes to me physically and mentally ill, probably more physically if it's about psychosomatics, I show him this picture and I say, now you are here where you see this baby. Now you are here. And of course, you feel bad. But when you feel better, you will have additional energy, time, maybe additional money. How can it be felt in your family? And when everything is good in your family, how will it be felt in the how it will it affect the community, those who are close to you, your friends, your colleagues, and so on and so forth?
буде відпроектуватись на твоє місто, якщо, ну і так далі. І в кінці кінців, так сказати, якщо у всіх країн буде оце гаразд, то як себе буде відчувати людство? У мене знову з'явилася англійська мова чи ні? Паралельно з'явилася English language, іде трансляція чи ні? Оце. включити український канал, ми знову треба вийти звідси. Убрати український канал.
So I need to move from one channel to the other. Якщо ви говорите українською мовою, перейдіть, будь ласка, на український канал. Якщо англійською, то на англійському каналі. Тоді треба український канал.
Ну, зараз ще раз спробуємо. І тоді Пазушкян помітив,
Then Pezeshkian
людина так починає тільки
noticed that if a person just starts thinking like that, just widens his identity, and he feels it in his dreams, and then he can get healed faster, better. So that's why we can ask some questions. Who am I in this war? Who I am here as a father, as a professional, as part of my city. And it is very interesting who I am here in this war of Russia and Ukraine. Who am I here as a person of the whole country, the whole land even. The war for me is work, and it's work for the victory and peace. Ukrainians do not see themselves as victims who need to ask for some kind of protection, but they see themselves as protectors of free world. One more phrase that can be helpful for us, it is this phrase by Jung, who has mentioned that the main problems of person are impossible to solve. You can only grow out of them. Probably this picture will show this to us a little bit. So if we if we widen our identity, then we have a different meaning, different vision of the problem that has to be solved. If we take this phrase that psychotherapy is a reflexive dialogue directed to a diminishing of suffering of the client and widening of his or her identity, then actually that's what we mean. This is the first idea, that widening of identity in the situation that we are currently in. It is one of the ways. But there is this question, how do identity and sense connected? And I do believe that it is not sense that forms identity, but identity naturally is filled with its sense. This is actually the difference between role and identity, between fiction and sense. And this famous question, what's the sense, first needs to be answered not what's the sense, but who the sense is for. The threat of losing feeling of self-identity leads to anxiety and leads us to finding quasi-identity and some kind of borrowing or even buying, as in the store, pseudo-senses. It can happen through identity to real figures, leader or let's say headman, religious ideology. In total system, this mechanism is used for zombieing population and for conducting informational, psychological special operation during the war. In therapeutic way, there are two main strategies present, building connections with reality and a possibility. From the existential point of view, we will be talking about accepting the fact that reality is given to us and how we can use the possibility of this of something that is given. And here we are moving to a different idea. And the system of the theory of psychotherapy, we have this concept of existential given, Yalom, and this death, freedom, isolation. Pezeshkian has been talking about basic capabilities or abilities to love, to create relations between each other and the world, and the possibility to learn yourself and the world. So we can say that generally existence has two components. It's existential given and existential possibilities. We will stop here on existential possibilities. And I do believe that existence gives us three possibilities. So the very life gives us three possibilities. There's the possibility to survive, live, and develop. It's interesting that it has been mentioned a lot during previous speeches. So that's why If
сенс і
we are
будемо
talking about the
пам'ятати
sense,
вислів
and
Віктора
if
Франкла,
we remember Viktor
засновника
Frankl
логотерапії, що ми
speech,
не
the
можемо
founder of
навчитися цьому.
logotherapy, that we
Його можливо
cannot
тільки
learn
прожити.
somebody the sense of life,
І
you
я
can
б
only live
додав, що в
it.
процесі ми
And I would
можемо
like to
його
add
прожити,
here that in
але
the
ми
process we
можемо
actually can
прожити
live
або в
it, but
процесі
we can live it
виживання,
either
або
through
в
the
процесі
process of
проживання,
survival
або в
or the
процесі
process of
розвитку.
living through the process
Скоріше,
of development.
вони
And
всі поєднані.
and even they are all connected actually, and at the same time we have different identities. Probably this picture of the tree does illustrate this. In nature uh, all these possibilities are possible, they are taking place in nature and with a person. Existential possibility of survival, living and development, they are, in my opinion, are connected between each other, and even in real life, in, let's say, healthy life, they create certain dynamics of life, and they have this balance, certain balance. Probably we cannot say that they are detached from one another, but somehow they are overlapping. And in the specific situation, we can talk about balance and whether this balance is present, whether if we are in the state of war, then we can have here violated balance. We cannot live this sense of life. We live through this, and we live the biggest part of it in this strategy of survival. So if a person or a system is in the process of survival in this existential identity, then it blocks others' existential possibility to live and possibility to develop, or they kind of all subordinate to this survival. In psychotherapeutic, from the psychotherapeutic point of view, maybe it's better to do the following way. We need to, if it's the principle of balance, it exists in lots of directions, but in positive psychotherapy, it's one of the main principles. To equal this balance, we need to decrease the possibility of a time of living, which is detached from needs of survival. So our living is part of living when we are at war, and it is occupied by these processes of survival. But for the therapy, we need that some part of our living was not occupied, or as we mentioned, our healthy part was not occupied. It's one of the principles. And also what Pazashkian has noticed, that a person is suffering not so much from what he or she has suffered, and I would like to pay attention that we have lots of experiences, but actually from what she or he hasn't yet managed to live through. So this person has not yet managed to survive this part which is not involved in the war, and it can be one of the strategies of psychotherapy. Once again, it kind of launches the person, develops. Yes, we cannot say that this person stays in this survival mode. It launched this dynamic process of life, this process of continuity of life. And here we also has to add here about the existence identity, about idea of living and survival and development. We can use it in different theories. For example, in the theory of systems, the very family can be brought up in this survival, and there can be not enough of contact and not enough of living. And in this identity, I'm living or I'm surviving as who. And very often this traumatization takes place in one identity, and it is also important to notice, not just to live through and develop, but also in which identity and how this identity can be developed. Now I would like to move to this third idea. The third idea is the idea of existential ages or stages of our life. I have called this existential heights of our life. One part of our life is we are living as a child, and then in this law give and take we more take. So it does not depend on my age. I can all my life live an identity of a child who needs something from others, help and so on and so forth. The other height is the height of a grown up person. And if on the first height I want more to take, then on the second height I actually am able to get into partners relationships. And then the survival on the first height, my survival will depend on others. I want to be somebody next to me who is a stronger system, person, or God. On the second height, my survival will depend on myself. I will rely on my skills. The third height is I'm a father. That's the height of caring. On that height, I already care. My survival is connected to survival of others. I am surviving for the others to survive. The third height is the height of serving. The war has shown that we have still lots of going on now, lots of volunteer movement when people help others, not only their close people, but they help others to live through, to develop. And the third height is I'm a part of I'm part of universe, of humanity. Here, my transcendental experiences. So basically, I can say that from the point of view of positive psychotherapy, it is all justified, and the various psychotherapist in his or her professional development also is going through all those ways. At first, he as a child wants to have stronger people close to him or her, like teachers, and that's why in our professional growth we also move through all those heights, and in all of those heights we will be living, surviving and developing in a different way. And to sum it up, about three interconnected therapeutic strategies and work with existential possibilities. The first one is this idea of sustaining, maintaining dynamic balance between existential possibilities of existence and development. The second is actualization of existential possibility of living. That's actually what we lack. And also this this capability of being engaged to continuity of being. And the third is formation of a stable existential self-identity as the pillar. And in all the times, it is all shown, and this mechanism can be useful for us in our work. The stork, the symbol of Ukraine, and BBC actually has set cameras in Poltava region in Ukraine, and they constantly 24/7 work and show how this family of storks is developing, growing, and it has become very popular in YouTube. And during the war, lots of people just look at this life going on, and it is a symbol of our life, of what is going on with us. We can live, we can survive, we can develop, having very strong pillar as our identity. Thank you for your attention.
Volodymyr, thank you so very much. Thank you from my heart for having pre-recorded your presentation, but now also presented it to us. I agree with Irena. It is nice to see you in person. It's lovely to hear you present to us in person. And I really appreciated your talk. I just wish to correct, you're the director of the Ukrainian Institute for Positive Psychotherapy. And I think this is the messages that you are giving to us are absolutely vital for the symposium today, but actually for all of us, for our work, whatever context we're conducting it within. Your words are so important for us. The ideas and the principles that you have set out for us are so important for us. So I thank you so much for your presentation today, and hopefully you can be with us this afternoon, and then there may be some questions from participants at the symposium for you. Thank you so much.
Дякую, Патріся.
Thank you.